What a strong and powerful message to start our new year with, right? Awakening, awake my soul, and sing. Well, hopefully what we'll be doing together this morning is going to help to unleash that experience, that activity for each and every one of us. There was an aging Hindu master who was having some challenges with a student of his. This student was always complaining about everything. And so the master wanted to teach the student how to hold things in life that are painful or difficult or unpleasant. And so the master said to his student, "Here, I want you to take a handful of salt and put it in this glass of water, and then I want you to take a great big sip of that water." And so the student obeyed obediently, put a handful of salt in a glass of water, took a great big sip of it, spit it out. The master said, "How did that taste?" And the student said, "Terrible, it tasted bitter." The master said, "Yes, that is right. Come with me now," he said to his student. "We're going to go to the lake. And now I want you to take a handful of salt and dump it into the lake." And so the student did. And the master said, "And now I want you to take a handful of water and I want you to drink that water from the lake." And the student did. And the water tasted good. And the master said to the student, "How did that taste?" And the student said, "It tasted fine. It tasted sweet. It tasted good." And the student wondered, but what is the lesson? And here's what the master said to the student. "The pain of life is pure salt, no more, no less. The amount of pain in life remains exactly the same. However, the amount of bitterness we taste depends on the container we put the pain in. So when you are in pain, the only thing you can do is to enlarge your sense of things." The only thing you can do when you're in pain is to enlarge your sense of things. I've been in our Unity teaching for 40 years now, something like that. Actually longer than 40 years. And what I know about living a life grounded in these practices and principles is that it absolutely does enlarge one's sense of things. It absolutely increases one's capacity for everything in life, one's capacity to move through life with greater grace and greater ease. And that's the essence of what we want to accomplish together today as community. We start this brand new year together. We want to be able to enlarge our sense of things so that we're able to move through all the changes that this new year is going to bring for us, those that we are consciously wanting to make happen or have happen, as well as those things that may happen completely out of our control and completely unexpected. If this is your first time being with us for our White Stone ceremony, it is a different thing than the way we typically do our Sunday morning services. Can I see by a show of hands who is with us for the first time this morning for White Stone? Very first White Stone. Welcome. Very happy to have you here with us. A little bit of context setting for where the idea of this White Stone ceremony comes from. It comes out of a passage in the book of Revelation. If you are a student of the Bible, especially a Unity student of the Bible, you know that the Bible cannot be read like any other book. It doesn't begin with Genesis, and it actually doesn't end with Revelation, although it looks like that from the sequencing of the various books in the Bible. To read and really understand the Bible, one must have a much broader understanding of the Bible and the history and the times and the language and the idiomatic expressions and the culture and practices of the people to really understand it. One must also understand that most of the Bible must be understood mystically and metaphysically for it to really have any sense and meaning to us on the deepest level. And this is especially so in the book of Revelation. Let me read the passage to you from which this idea for the white stone comes from. It's Revelation 2:17. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will also give him a white stone with the new name written on it, known only to him who receives it. Now let me go back and do a little bit of metaphysical, mystical Bible interpretation for you. He who has an ear, speaking now not just of the physical ear, but the inner ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Churches is understood to refer to consciousness, the state in which we dwell, our consciousness. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna. Manna was a food source to the Israelites during their wandering years in the wilderness. This idea that to him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna is to remind us that there is a source of nourishment available to each and every one of us that is not the physical sense of nourishment, not the food that we take into our bodies, but as Jesus spoke about the idea of the living waters, the Spirit within us that can nourish and nurture us. I will also give him a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to him who receives it. I will give him a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to him who receives it. When we think of white, we think of blank. We think of a clean slate, so to speak, on which to write something. The very word name comes out of the Greek and Hebrew root word that refers not so much to a person's name as to the nature of that person or the nature of the thing being named. And so this passage, mystically and metaphysically, is pointing us to the inner work in consciousness that we are to do, and that there is a nature or a quality that we are to practice that will nourish us from the inside out. Now, a little more context here. And the context is that in the ancient days, when a prisoner was released from prison, they were given a white stone to take with them to show that they were free. It was sort of their get out of jail card, if you will. It was something that they were given that they could show to others to let them know that they had paid their debt. They were now free. They were unburdened to begin again. And only people who were free were actually given this white stone. For us, this white stone represents a fresh start, a clear focus, a way to build something into the new year that nourishes us and sustains us in easy times and in not so easy times. And so for us, this white stone is not about a new name, but it is about a practice, a quality, something that we are going to live out of and live from in this new year. The idea of practice is so foundational and fundamental to all that unity stands for. In fact, one of our 5 unity principles is that ours is something that is to be practiced daily, that it's not just we learn these things and then we go about our life in our usual way. Not that at all. It's about practicing it. I reflected upon, or I thought about this at first surface when I was using the word practice. I love the word practice, but in a way it's very akin to the word discipline. You know, to get good at anything, what do you have to do? You have to practice it. And practice also means that when we practice something because we already recognize that we have not yet perfected it, right? If we perfected it, then there's not the need to practice anymore in the same way because it has become almost second nature or automatic. Does that make sense? One of the most interesting statements a brand new person ever made to me or gave me when I asked the question, well, what brought you to Unity today? The person's response was, I'm looking for something to practice. And as a minister, that was such a rewarding statement to hear, that somebody was coming because they were looking for, what can I practice that will make a difference in my life? To get good at anything requires discipline, practice, and awareness. So what is it that you believe you need to practice in this new year that could make all the difference in the world to how this new year unfolds? What is it that you think you need to practice? We're going to do an exercise in a few minutes to actually take us into receiving that answer. And when we do, it's important that we recognize that which we are going to practice wants to be stated in the positive. Not what we don't want to be or don't want to have happen, but what is it that we do want to practice? We also want it to be something that we've got some familiarity with. A quality, an idea that feels kind of right for us, but not yet perfected or complete in us. Something simple, so simple that at any moment it can be useful to us. So simple that we will not forget it. It's as if it's not just written on this stone, but written on our heart. In fact, in the Old Testament, there are many, many, many references to Spirit saying, I will write this on your heart. We know it doesn't mean literally write it on our heart, but it means it will become so much you that you will not forget it. That's what this practice wants to be for us. As we take time in a few minutes to reflect upon that, a couple of words of caution here. What do you think it should be? What do you think your words should be? Does everybody kind of have a feeling of what they think it should be? The reason I'm asking you to think about that is when we do our little exercise together, I want you to put it aside, the should. Because that can be the ego mind telling us an answer that is not necessarily the right answer, the best fit for us. So what do you think it should be? Okay? And the second is, what do you hope it isn't going to be? What do you hope it isn't going to be? Some of you have said to me over the years, Wendy, I keep getting the same answer that I got the year before and the year before. And I just smile. Because that's also happened to me before as well. And it is because there's something deep in us that is recognizing that we still have some work to do in that area. Does this make sense? Okay, I want to read a little piece to you from Wendy Palmer's book. Wendy Palmer is a black belt Aikidoist. Aikido is a martial art that is a deeply spiritual martial art. Many martial arts are actually. Aikido is unique in that it is a non-resistant art, meaning that when a person is coming at a person who is practicing the martial art of Aikido, when an attacker is coming forward, the practitioner of Aikido is intent on two things, equally intent on two things. The first being protecting themselves from physical harm. The second, equal to the first, is protecting the attacker as well. It's very much a physical practice of all that we hold internally in metaphysics, the practices of non-resistance. So that's a little bit of context for this piece written by Wendy Palmer about this idea of practice, this idea of embodying a particular quality. She writes, a quality we choose needs to be something that creates a strong response in our emotional center. Our quality can be difficult to feel if it's too abstract. Alternatively, our quality can be overpowering if it is so charged that we start crying as soon as we evoke it. An effective quality is one that in any moment is absolutely appropriate to possess. I want to read that again. An effective quality is one that in any moment is absolutely appropriate to possess. It's important to avoid choosing a quality based on a should, such as I should be softer or I should be more dynamic. The word should indicates an internal demand that usually comes from a concept or an idea of what we think we ought to be. Going into should territory usually puts our system into resistance. A lot of truth there. Usually puts our system into resistance. As a consequence, we may not feel anything when we evoke our quality, or we might find that we just don't want to be bothered with it. We may be able to instantly identify a quality we want to nourish, or we may need to search for the most appropriate one for our circumstances. In both situations, it's helpful to try on the quality before we commit to working with it over time. And so that's what we're going to be doing now. So JR, if I can have you come to the piano to get ready to do some background music for us. And so there are lots of different possibilities for our guiding quality, our guiding practice. Maybe it will be clarity. Maybe it will be trust. Maybe it will be inner peace. Perhaps it will be compassion, or maybe wisdom, or maybe release, or maybe creativity, maybe gratitude or blessing. I want you to go ahead and hold your white stone in your hand. And be tactile with it. Really, really feel it. Really, really touch it. A symbol of our freedom. A blank slate. A chance to start anew. A chance to practice. To practice in such a way that we are able to bring forth more of the good in our lives that we desire, that we want. So as you hold your white stone in your hand, go ahead and close your eyes. And just move into that quiet and receptive state of being. Allowing your attention to drop into the area of the heart. To know in advance that there is a guiding word, a guiding practice that would be the most fitting for you in this new year. Knowing too that the mind alone might come up with lots of different possibilities. And yet we challenge ourselves to dip beneath the usual level of thinking our way through things. And instead, anchored in the heart, to move ourselves into a place of sincere receiving. To listen with the inner ear. And so we ask, dear sweet Spirit, as I stand here at the start of a brand new year in this beautiful sanctuary with my spiritual family and friends, what would you have me practice? What would you have me embody in this new year? What would you have be my anchor, my touchstone, my go-to quality in the easy times, and should there be some not so easy times, in those times as well? What is the quality, the practice, that if I had more of that in my life, I absolutely know that so much would be so much better. And so I sit for just a few moments, attention focused in the area of the heart, welcoming the awareness of that guiding word, that guiding practice. Knowing that my sincere asking and my genuine listening allows that word, that quality, to drift swiftly, clearly, and easily into my awareness. I may recognize it right away, or I may find myself intrigued by it. It may be something I've thought about in the past few days, or maybe something that has come completely unexpectedly. And yet, I recognize it at the very core of my being. I turn that word, that quality, over gently in my mind, my heart. I can feel into that quality right here and now. And I can easily imagine all the ways and places and times the embodiment and the practice of it will strengthen and make better all aspects of my life. And so in this holy and sacred moment, I take my pencil out and I write my new name, my new nature, my quality that I will be practicing throughout this beautiful new year. So go ahead and take a moment to write the word, the quality that came into your awareness. Let it be easy. Resist the temptation of the mind to argue with you, and simply write it down. And as you do, let me read a few words to you from Wendy Palmer once again. So as you're holding your stone and aware of your guiding word, your practice for the new year, she writes, most of us have not yet arrived at the place where we can maintain our balance throughout all of life's situations. This quality provides a focus and helps us to stabilize our emotional center. She shares that for many years she has chosen a different quality, a word that she works with throughout the year. She says, identifying a different quality is the beginning of a new journey within myself. I usually have a set of ideas about what the quality will bring, but as the weeks and months pass, having asked and evoked the quality many times, unexpected responses begin to occur. Inevitably, I discover previously hidden dimensions of myself. And not only do I learn to deepen my capacity for the quality that I have chosen, but more importantly, I stimulate my curiosity and enter the mystery again and again. So whatever it is that you have written on that white stone, my prayer for you, my sincere prayer for you, is that it will be your guiding word, that it will be your go-to practice, that no matter what pops up in your life, if you have a difficult decision to make, a situation in the family to move through, too much work to do, or not enough money, or not enough time, whatever it is, whatever stuff of life happens, that the very first thought that crosses your mind is this quality that you've written. You see, ours is a living and abiding faith and practice, and it is as we practice that our life shifts and changes. So all those things that you have thought about and dreamt about and are planning for and hoping for in this new year, whatever you've put on that stone is truly a significant piece of helping to make that happen. And may your sense be enlarged and expanded. May your capacity to live and feel and be expanded in this new year. Namaste.